A legendary dog set out on a journey from Japan to America, destined for a particular place. Along the way, he lost his way and found himself adrift in a foreign land. Fate led him to a kind stranger, with whom he eventually bonded deeply. This dog was the epitome of loyalty, never straying from his newfound owner's side. His devotion was unwavering, and he became an inseparable companion. Tragically, when his owner passed away, the dog remained steadfast, waiting patiently for years, hoping for his return. His story became a moving testament to loyalty and love that endures beyond loss.
In the opening scene of the movie, the kids in class are busy reading their essays. One of them starts telling a fascinating story about a legendary dog named Hachiko. He shares what he knows about this dog and his family. It has Japanese roots and was specially packed from Japan. It arrived in America in its own cage via an airplane, seemingly for a specific person. As the story unfolds, Hachiko's cage accidentally falls during transport, and he manages to escape. Parker, who happens to be passing by, notices this stunning dog without an owner. He looks around in surprise. He immediately rushes to the ticket booth to inform the attendant about the situation, hoping to find the dog's owner. But Carl, the ticket seller, casually replies that it's a hassle for him. If they don't find the owner by tonight, he'll have to take Hachiko to the lost dog shelter tomorrow. After hearing this, Parker decides to take the dog home with him. Knowing his wife isn't fond of dogs, he hides Hachiko and then goes upstairs to meet his wife after giving her a kiss. Meanwhile, our playful Hachiko starts exploring his new surroundings. He accidentally bumps into something, making a noise that catches Parker's wife's attention. Parker reassures her that it's just the wind and the rustling leaves. Curious little Hachiko makes his way out of his hiding spot, climbing the stairs to Parker and his wife's bedroom. He gets a bit excited and starts licking Kate's feet. She freaks out and tells Parker to take the dog outside. But Parker insists that Hachiko is just a guest and will only stay for the night. Later, Parker sets up a cozy spot for Hachiko in the warm shed outside. The next day, their daughter Andy cuddles with Hachiko, while her mom snaps a photo to quickly post as a lost dog notice. Andy, smitten, tells her dad she wants to keep this adorable and charming dog. But Parker reminds her that her mom won't approve. After Kate prints the notice, she places it in front of Parker's piano, hoping to find the owner soon. Andy says goodbye to Hachiko as Parker takes him to the lost dog shelter. Upon meeting the shelter attendant, Parker learns there's no room for Hachiko, and they'll have to wait at least a month for a spot. Undeterred, Parker visits his friend at the bookstore, who is thrilled to see Hachiko and exclaims what a cute dog he is. Parker sticks a notice on the door of his friend's shop. Next, Parker heads to the train station, where he runs into his hot dog selling buddy. He shares the story of Hachiko and hands him a flyer. Jasjeet responds, "That's a big responsibility," and gifts Parker some hot dogs as a treat. Parker then talks to Carl, the ticket seller, giving him some flyers to pass around to passengers. But when Carl sees Parker trying to sneak Hachiko onto the train, he warns him that bringing dogs on board is a no-go. On the train, Parker discreetly gives Hachiko some milk in a paper cup, hiding him in a small bag. But Hachiko's excited sounds give him away, drawing the attention of fellow passengers. As a piano teacher, Parker brings Hachiko to work, where ballet dancers are rehearsing. Hachiko peeks out of the bag, curiously watching them. Parker quickly scoops him up, but the ballet students are totally charmed by the little pup. In the next scene, Parker visits his old buddy Ken, who happens to be a university professor, and introduces him to Hachiko. Ken takes a look at the little note attached to Hachiko's collar and figures out he's an Akita from Japan. He notices the number 8 on the collar, which in Japanese is pronounced Hachi. Ken explains that Hachiko might be named so because he was the 8th puppy born. The number 8 is considered magical, rising to the heavens and then coming back down to earth. Then we cut to Parker having a fun time playing with Hachiko at home. However, his wife, Kate, walks in just as Parker has decided to name the dog Hachiko. She isn't too thrilled and wonders why Parker isn't doing more to find the dog's owner or give him up. Parker insists that he got the name from the little note he found with the dog. Suddenly, chaos ensues as Parker realizes he's lost Hachiko. They soon discover that Hachiko has snuck into Kate's office and made a mess of her samples and work materials. This is where we see that dogs can quickly pick up on human emotions and instincts. Hachiko's mischief seems to be a reaction to Kate's negative feelings toward him. Parker decides to take Hachiko to the shed for a little timeout, but later that night, away from Kate's watchful eyes, he sneaks him back in. While holding Hachiko, Parker does some research online about the Akita breed and learns that it dates back over 4,000 years, marking one of the first bonds between humans and animals. As he's getting ready to settle Hachiko down for the night, he turns on the TV to catch a game from his favorite sports team. To his surprise, he notices that Hachiko seems to enjoy watching the game. Parker and Hachiko kick back, munching on popcorn while Kate is fast asleep in bed. But when Kate wakes up and notices Parker hasn't joined her, she hears the TV and finds him dozing off on the couch with Hachiko snuggled up beside him. Parker wakes up with a start and claims he was just about to come to bed, a story Kate doesn't buy for a second. The next day, Parker is out in the yard tossing a ball for Hachiko, but to his dismay, Hachiko shows no interest in playing fetch. Meanwhile, through the window, Andy and her mom watch Parker trying his best to have fun with the dog, giving it his all to teach Hachiko a thing or two. Just then the phone rings. Someone is calling about the advertisement for Hachiko, and Kate tells them she needs to check with her husband first. But it doesn't take long for Kate to change her mind. After witnessing the heartwarming bond between Parker and Hachiko, she picks up the phone again and tells the caller, "Sorry, but the dog has already been adopted. We can't give him up." Months roll by, and we see Hachiko growing up alongside Parker, who's clearly become a cherished companion. Hachiko's love for Parker is so strong that he refuses to let him leave for work without a fight. In a dramatic show of determination, he digs through the backyard to find a way out, just as Parker boards the train. Hachiko is spotted sitting by the window on the sidewalk, watching his favorite human. Parker rushes over to him, asking Carl for a minute to lead Hachiko back home. But it soon becomes clear that Hachiko has no intention of leaving Parker's side. So Parker tells Carl, "No worries, I'll just take the next train." In the next scene, we find Hachiko sitting sadly in a corner, watching Parker and his wife, Kate, fill in the hole he dug in a desperate attempt to reach Parker. Kate reassures him, "You go on and catch your next train. I'll take care of the hole and keep an eye on Hachiko." She then treats Hachiko to his favorite food, trying to cheer him up. At work, Parker apologizes to his colleagues for showing up late. Come noon, Hachiko hears the train horn and bolts out of the house, eager to see Parker before he even steps off the train. He stands proudly on a small patch of grass outside the station. As soon as Parker exits, he spots Hachiko and scoops him up in a big hug. He turns to his hot dog vendor friend and asks, "Since when has Hachiko been here?" The vendor replies, "Just 10 minutes ago." Meanwhile, back at home, Kate has invited Andy and her fiancé, Michael, over for a barbecue. While grilling, Parker chats with Michael about his daughter. Michael admits that he's head over heels for Andy and plans to propose soon. In the next scene, Michael tries to throw a ball for Hachiko, but he trips over one of the poles in the yard and falls flat on his face. To his surprise, Hachiko just stares at him and doesn't bring the ball back at all. Next, we find Parker and Ken engaged in a friendly game with sticks. Parker asks Ken why Hachiko and other Akita dogs aren't like the usual pups that would fetch a ball and bring it back. Ken replies, "Japanese dogs, especially Akitas, aren't quite like that. If they're going to fetch something, it has to be really special to them, or they've got a specific purpose for doing it." In the next scene, Parker takes Hachiko out for a stroll before heading off to work. They share a heartfelt goodbye. Hachiko, on his way back home, passed by the butcher shop and stopped. As usual, the shopkeeper gave him some meat to eat. After a few hours, as Parker approaches the station, he spots Hachiko waiting on the platform, his tail wagging in excitement. They walk the rest of the way together, and in the next scene, we see Andy and Michael finally tying the knot, capturing a beautiful photo with Hachiko by their side. Days pass, but one day Parker steps off the train as usual, eager to see Hachiko. To his surprise, he doesn't find him waiting by the platform. Concerned, he rushes to the theater, where he discovers Kate is busy redecorating. Parker asks her about Hachiko, and she admits she hasn't seen him. Fearing the worst, Parker hurries home. In the shed, he finds Hachiko, who hasn't budged an inch because of a pesky weasel. Realizing Hachiko is stuck, Parker gets an idea. He places a box over the weasel, hoping it will give Hachiko a chance to escape. But as Hachiko tries to make his getaway, he panics and sends the box flying off the weasel. In a twist of fate, the startled weasel releases a foul odor right at that moment. Both Parker and Hachiko end up smelling pretty terrible. In the next scene, Kate opens the bathroom door to find both of them in the tub, with Parker attempting to wash off the stench from Hachiko. She quickly shuts the door, horrified by the smell. Meanwhile, Andy bursts in with some exciting news for her mom. She's pregnant. Kate is overjoyed at the thought of becoming a grandmother. Andy then heads to the shed, where Parker is enjoying some quality time with Hachiko. Andy broke the news to her dad that she was pregnant and would soon be a mom. Parker, over the moon about becoming a grandfather, wrapped his daughter in a warm hug, grinning from ear to ear. Later, Andy chats with her mom in the theater, marveling at how long her parents have been together. "I can't believe you and Dad have been married for 25 years, she exclaims. As always, after a long day at work, Parker reunites with Hachiko, and they head home together, ready to face whatever adventures lie ahead. In the next scene, Kate comes home to a delightful surprise from Parker. He set the mood in the bathroom with candles lit all around. After a sweet kiss, they enjoy a romantic night together in the bath. Later, as they snuggle in bed, Kate playfully tells Parker, "I love you so much more when you're not stinky from playing with Hachiko." They drift off to sleep together, while Hachiko waits patiently in the shed, longing for Parker's return. The next morning, just before Parker heads off to work, he notices Hachiko standing alone, looking a bit forlorn. It's as if Hachiko is still miffed about last night's events. Parker gives him a comforting hug and says, "Well, if you're not coming with me, I guess it's goodbye for now." But soon after Parker leaves, Hachiko does something surprising. He grabs his ball, nudges the door open, and takes off to find Parker. Parker notices Hachiko trying to catch up and realizes he wants to play. When he throws the ball for Hachiko, the dog happily brings it back and Parker is over the moon with excitement. He can't wait to share this new trick with his friends. Afterward, Parker grabs some hot dogs from his vendor buddy, says goodbye to Hachiko, and heads to work. During his piano class, he plays a little tune for his students and talks about the importance of timing in life, how everything happens when it's meant to. But suddenly he feels a heavy weight in his chest and starts to breathe heavily. He sits down with his students, forcing a smile. But then, without warning, he collapses from a sudden heart attack. Meanwhile, Hachiko is waiting at the station, just as he always does. Hours pass, the station closes, and the last passengers leave. But Hachiko remains, loyal as ever, waiting in the cold winter night for his beloved Parker to return. Eventually, Andy and Michael arrive and take Hachiko home with them. That night, Hachiko hears the sounds of their sorrow and tears coming from the shed. The next day, Andy gently strokes Hachiko in the shed, crying as she says, "I can't take care of you like Dad did." Soon after, the family, along with Kate, attends Parker's funeral. Ken reads a heartfelt tribute, sharing what a kind and noble man Parker was. Yet through it all, Hachiko still stands on that little patch of grass, waiting for Parker to walk through the door, right on time, just as he always did. As night falls, Hachiko remains at the station, unwavering in his vigil. Carl, on his way home, sees Hachiko and gently tells him, "Parker's not coming back, buddy, but if you want to wait for him, you can." In the next scene, we see Parker's house packed up and empty. Kate gazes at Parker's belongings and piano with tears in her eyes, feeling the weight of their loss. They move out, and it's decided that Hachiko will go to Andy and Michael's new home. However, after Parker's death, Hachiko is utterly heartbroken. As a dog, he feels the profound loss deeply. One day, when Parker's grandchild accidentally bumps into Hachiko with a walker, he doesn't react at all. But when Michael comes home, Hachiko bolts out the door, sprinting away before Michael can catch him. Hachiko races to the train tracks and spends the night under one of the train cars. The next morning, he makes his way back along the tracks to Parker's old house, only to find strangers moving in. He heads back to the familiar platform where he used to wait for Parker, settling in for another long wait. Suddenly, Jasjeet shows up and offers him a sausage. Not long after, Andy and Michael find him there again and take him home with them. At their house, Andy tells Hachiko, "We're all grieving for Parker just like you are." She adds, "But I won't pressure you. If you want to leave, I'll open the door for you." She cracked the door open, and Hachiko bolts outside, unwilling to give up his spot on the platform as he waits for Parker to return. Once more, he gets a little meat from the butcher and fills his belly. That night, he sleeps under the same train car, and the next day, while standing on the platform, he notices a fancy little dog approaching, sniffing him curiously. In the next scene, a reporter approaches Carl to ask about Hachiko. Carl shares the touching story of Hachiko's life, emphasizing how he has become a local legend. They even take a picture together, and the reporter plans to publish Hachiko's inspiring story in the newspaper. Afterward, Carl uses the donations he's received from the community to buy food for Hachiko, saying, "You've become quite the famous dog, haven't you?" In the next scene, Ken happens to drop by the train station and spots Hachiko. He asks Jasjeet how Hachiko has been doing, and whether he's been getting enough to eat. Jasjeet assures him that Hachiko is well taken care of, even receiving donations from the community. Ken gently tells Hachiko, "Parker was a great friend and I share your grief, but he's not coming back." That night, before Jasjeet leaves, he gives Hachiko some sausage once again. In the following scene, we see Hachiko still standing on the platform as the seasons change around him. Spring comes, then autumn, and again spring returns. Years pass, but Hachiko remains steadfastly waiting for Parker. In the next scene, Parker's widow, Kate, steps off the train and greets Carl and Jasjeet. She takes a stroll to their theater, reminiscing about old memories. Soon, she catches sight of their old house and then heads to Parker's grave, where she runs into Ken. They exchange greetings, both feeling the weight of the loss of such a wonderful man. As Kate and Ken walk together, they spot Hachiko waiting in his usual spot. Kate is ecstatic to see him after all these years, but she notices that Hachiko is now old, his face showing the toll of waiting all that time. He truly is the most loyal dog in the world. In the next scene, Kate shows pictures of Hachiko and Parker to her grandchild, explaining to him the amazing loyalty of this dog. In the film's final scenes, Hachiko, curled up under the train car, suddenly wakes up and heads back to his favorite platform in the chilly winter air, settling in to wait once more. As he drifts off to sleep again, he dreams of Parker, who joyfully runs up beside him. Finally, in his dream, Parker appears at the door, and they embrace a beautiful reunion in the world of dreams. The story wraps up with Parker's grandchild finishing the inspiring tale of Hachiko, tears welling up in the eyes of all the students. "Hachiko is my hero, and he inspires me," he declares. Michael, Parker's son-in-law, has even bought a small Akita puppy for him, bringing this loyal breed back into their family. The screen then explains that the real Hachiko was born in 1923 in Japan. His owner, a professor, passed away in May 1925, just 2 years later. But Hachiko didn't just wait one day. He waited at that train station for 9 years, until he passed away in 1934. Years later, a bronze statue was erected in his honor at Shibuya Station, right where he had always waited, a lasting testament to his loyalty and love.